today Dr. Bikash Chandra Panda, who has joined us from Odisha, and he has taken time off from his schedule to be here with us to share his views on earthquake-resistant design of concrete structures. Before giving to the speaker, let me just give a brief overview of our initiatives that we have been taking over the last few months. First is let me just tell you that this is 63rd webinar that we are conducting, and we have already conducted webinars on various topics. As all of you know, we had done it on concreting, we have done it on smart cities, we have done it on ready-mix concrete and things like that. So we had a wide array of topics on which we have conducted the webinars. And we also had few sessions with various professional bodies like Association of Consulting Civil Engineers we had, and we had also conducted a webinar on analysis and design of liquid retaining structures for a period of 5 days, which was appreciated by the construction professionals. Similarly, we had a series of lectures on geotechnical engineering, that is, as all of you know, on foundation and soil aspects. The idea was that we wanted to give a brief, we wanted to give an overview on specific field, so that the construction professionals would be having a overall idea of such field. So that was the basic idea of having those seminars or a group of talks on a particular topic. Apart from that, we also had on blended cement, we had on ready-mix concrete panel discussion, sustainability, we had a number of discussions on that, reinforcement detailing. So what you can do is that if you would like to hear to the talk, you can always go on to the YouTube link, which I am sure that you all would be having, or if you do not have, you would also be sharing in today's this thing also, chat box. You would be able to see that, so you would be able to see how we are doing it. And you can also listen to those talks. Now, just a brief overview of the organization. The Ramco Cements, as all of you would be knowing, it's the flagship company of the Ramco Group, and we are manufacturing 12 brands of cement, which are of ordinary Portland cement, PPC, PSC, SRC, RHPC. And the cement is manufactured in 8 state-of-the-art production facilities that includes integrated cement plants and grinding units. Of course, the current total production capacity is 16.5 million, which is soon expected to be 20 million tons per annum. And there is a grinding unit in Odisha, which is also coming up, and we are also having a grinding unit in Kolaghat in West Bengal. And Ramco Cements, apart from manufacturing cements, also is involved in the manufacture of dry mortar products, which is used for non-structural applications, ranging from, as all of you would be knowing, wall putty, the Ramco Superfine, the super plaster, the plastering compound, and we are also operating one of the largest wind farms in the country. So, and if you look at the different types of cements, we have 4 types of cement in ordinary Portland cement. As per IS 269, the idea of having these 4 brands of cement is that because of the varying customer requirements, customers have various requirements in terms of strength, in terms of workability, in terms of slump retention, and they add this blending material at site. It could be either in a batching plant, RMC plant. So when we saw that, and when we were interacting with customers, we found that they were transporting the concrete sometimes as long as 3.5 hours. It's always recommended that concrete be used as soon as possible, but then there are instances where the slump retention required is too high. So for that, we have our Ramco Infra 53 grade cement. And for precast items, we have a special type of cement. So for all precast applications, if you would see in your respective area, you would find that Ramco Superfast is being used in many of the precast units, whether it be the hollow block units, the solid block units, the paving block units, the well ring manufacturers, and like that. And as of you would be knowing that, when you make a precast item, the basic objective is that the mold should be removed quickly without edge breakage and things like that. So that's the idea of having Ramco Superfast specific for those applications. And then we have the PPC cement, Ramco Super Grade, the Ramco Super Crete, Ramco Super Fine, especially Ramco Super Crete. If you see, it's a premium cement which has been made for concreting. When you make a concrete, say for example, if you concrete a roof, the basic objective of many engineers is that it should gain strength, and at the same time it should have low heat of hydration. Now that is something that you need to look at, both in the same cement itself, and that's what Ramco Super Crete cement is all about. You would be getting a higher rate of gain of strength, and many times we have seen that M20 grade of concrete, you would get the 20 MPa within 7 days. If the mix design is done normally and if you're following the normal mix proportions, and at the same time heat of hydration is lower. Now that does not mean that you should not do curing. Curing has to be done, because without curing, you will find that whenever you do concreting in hot weather condition, there is a chances of shrinkage. So the shrinkage has to be avoided. But the only thing is that we are giving a cement with low heat of hydration. So that's the advantage. And then we have the Portland slag cement, the Ramco Super Steel, the Ramco Samudra, and we have the sulfate resistant Portland cement. And apart from this, as all of you would be knowing, that we are supplying our cement to various project customers where they are making concrete of different requirements and in different exposure conditions. Because all of you would be aware of the IS 456, where you have different exposure conditions ranging from severe, very severe, extreme conditions of exposure where concrete has to be durable. So durability of concrete has become a major requirement in today's scenario. Because until unless your concrete is not durable, there's no point. So apart from compressive strength, durability is a major criteria. That is where major project customers who are our customers like ITD Cementation, Larsen & Toubro, Tata Housing. You can take, say for example, Haldia Development Authority, the metro projects where our cement is approved, and many of other specific applications, where it is being used. So you will find that they have been using our cement for various types of concrete, various requirements of concrete. Now, what we do is that in order to achieve this balance, like say for example, manufacturing different types of cement, manufacturing 12 different brands of cement, and at the same time mapping it onto the customer requirement. It needs a study. Now that study is being done by our Ramco Research and Development Center, where we test cement, we test the raw materials that is for manufacturing cement, and at the same time we do number of concrete mix designs with various kinds of chemical admixtures. Now there are so many chemical admixtures available in the market that it's always very important that we do a cement admixture compatibility test, because without that, you may not be knowing as to how the cement behaves with chemical admixture. So we do that kind of test at our Ramco Research Development Center. So that's it about Ramco Cements. And what I would advise is that if the construction professionals need a specific topic to be covered, say for example, if you want a specific area to be covered, please post it in our box so that we can see how we can take it over. And we are also planning to have a session this Sunday on specifically related to building construction. What are the challenges that a common customer faces and things like that. So we are planning to have number of webinars in the days to come. Now I do not want to take much of the time, so let me again welcome today's speaker and give a brief introduction of today's speaker, Dr. Bikash Chandra Panda, who is a professor at Indira Gandhi Institute of Technology in Odisha. So the thing is that he's based at Dhenkanal. And prior to this, he was a postdoctoral fellow as well as visiting research scholar at New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology in USA. He has obtained his BTech in Civil Engineering from VSSUT Burla, Odisha, MTech in Structural Engineering from NIT Rourkela, and PhD Civil Engineering from the IIT Kharagpur. He has 30 years of teaching, research, and consultancy experience in civil engineering. So his research has been referred in first draft manual of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. He has published 65 technical papers in journals and conferences. His research interest includes ground-bearing structures, disaster mitigation and management, structural integrity, appraisal, and refurbishment and all that, and non-destructive and partial destructive tests of structures, and materials characterization and membrane technology for water treatment. So if you look at today's session that he is going to handle, that is the earthquake resistant design of structures as per codal provisions. I am sure that many of you would be interested in this. That is the order of the day. So over to you, Dr. Bikash Chandra Panda, for the presentation.
Okay, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Vilay sir, and many thanks to organization Ramco, and good morning everybody to all the participants. And I am from IJD Sarang, that is situated in the central place of Odisha, and the internet strength may not be so strong, so I'm trying my best to do all these things. And today we are discussing actually the earthquake resistant design of structures, codal provisions. Hello.
Here, we are able to hear you.
Okay, codal provisions. So actually, though it will not cover detail of the code, not going detail inside the code, but on the so I will give some introduction about earthquake, how it happens, how the damages, and next I will go to codes and the overview of the codes that are used in India. In the next time, if I'll get a chance, then I can go to detail of each code. So the in the next slide, we can see the structure of the earth. Structure of the earth, it is chemically divided into three major parts, that is crust 0 to 100 km thick, then mantle and a core. The crust consists of continental core and the oceanic crust and the continental crust. And then it is coming mantle up to 2900 kilometer depth. Next it is coming core up to the center of that, and the outer core is mainly liquids up to 2900 to 5100 kilometer. And in the detail we can see here it. We see how the earthquake really occurs. We can first need to learn about the constitution of earth. Already I have shown in my previous slide. Now it is coming detail. You see, in the first 350 kilometer, we can divide also as lithosphere, then asthenosphere, then a mesosphere. From 0 to 100 kilometer, it is called lithosphere, which is, see the bottom side to the bottom, it is cool, rigid, and it is brittle in nature. It is cool because it's the top surface of the earth, and it is rigid, and also it is brittle in nature. Then from 100 kilometer to 350 kilometer, it is called asthenosphere, which is hot, weak, and plastic. It is not so solid, it is plastic, but hot condition. Then below that, we have mesosphere. It is hot, but stronger because it is having more, and for that, it is under high pressure, so it is more strong. And we can see here the oceanic crust. Actually, the continental crust is around 0 to 50 kilometer, and the oceanic crust around 10 kilometer. And here, up to lithosphere, it is 0 to 100 kilometer. So we can go to next slide. Ring of fire. This is called ring of fire. So since several years throughout the world, where the frequently the earthquake happens, and it has been already taken into account and already recorded, and then they have plotted, and they found out that this is Ocean and Atlantic Ocean. You can see how these are the points where a maximum earthquake occurs, and from these we got the idea that it consists of the top cross consists of plates, and these are the fault lines in between plates. These are the joints in between plates, and from that they got actually the plate boundaries. From the ring of fire, they got the plate boundaries, and the plate boundaries are all. So we have different plates.
Sir, I think you can.
The boundaries also, all the boundaries are here.
Sir, you can switch off your video if you want, so that bandwidth is a problem, no, sir.
I'll do it from my. Yeah, I can.
Yeah. If bandwidth is a problem, I think you can switch off your video, sir, because there is some.
Yeah, I did that from my end, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So now we can see the tectonic plates. Actually, tectonic plates are large parts of lithosphere. The lithosphere already we have discussed. It is floating on the asthenosphere. As we have discussed earlier, the asthenosphere, it is actually plastic, hot, and the lithosphere, it is actually solid, brittle. So because of the convection heat, and it is plastic, it puts a pressure on the lithosphere, and which is rigid. the convective currents move around with velocities several cm per year. The plates interact with one another in three basic ways. They collide with each other sometimes, they move away from each other, they slide one past another. So how actually it occurs, you can see because of the friction, the blocks do not slide, they are different. You can see here the fault is here in this diagram, and we have a fence. We have a fence. In the second diagram, you see because of the movement, the fence, it is not in straight line, it is just distorted. And in the third, when the stresses within the rock exceed the friction, the rupture occurs. In the third diagram, we can see how the rupture occurs and how the two plates move past each other. Then the elastic energy stored in the system is released after rupture in waves that radiate outward from the fault. So we can see these faults in a large diagram here, and this is the focus from the point where it actually rupture started and how the wave is moving towards the fault, and these are the wave front. Going to next slide, we have generally body waves, elastic waves. The waves from the focus it will generate outwards, and these are called elastic waves. And in the elastic wave, we have body waves, then surface waves. In the body waves, we have two types of waves. Longitudinal waves, they are faster than transverse waves. The particles oscillate in the direction of spreading, like sound wave, like compression, rarefication, like that. And these are called primary waves. These are called primary waves. Next, other type of ones also will be from the focus, it will start towards surface of the earth. These are called transversal waves. The particle oscillate in the direction perpendicular to the spreading direction, and these are called shear waves or secondary waves. They do not propagate through liquid. So as in the previous slide, we have seen the outer core. The outer core is liquid of the earth. So these S waves cannot pass through that, and they resemble with light waves, like sine waves. They resemble with that, and the P waves, they resemble with the sound waves. Now next, we can see in the diagram, this is the undisturbed material, and when the P wave starts, we can see compression, expansion, compression, expansion, okay, in the direction of the movement. And we can see secondary S waves, just like sine waves, up, down, in the direction of the movement. So if it is the interior of the earth or the focus from where the wave moves towards the top, the surface of the earth, so body waves, so it moves like that, and these P waves moves like compression and rarefication, like sound waves. Now next, the surface wave. When the body wave reach to the surface of earth, the primary wave and secondary waves, they will be converted to surface waves. And surface waves are harmful to actually our structures, our buildings, because it is buildings are situated on the surface and the ground. And we have two types of surface waves. One is Rayleigh wave. You can see the Rayleigh wave, how it is just like sine theta, but it is up, down. And you can see the log wave. It is also like a secondary wave, but it moves sideways. It is not up, down sine wave. It is a sine wave, but it moves laterally like snake, just like snake. So it is a side, moves horizontally slide, that also moves vertically. Both are sine waves, but the direction of movement is different. You can see here Rayleigh wave and here the log wave, and both are harmful to the structure because these are surface waves, and their amplitude diminishes with depth. They have large amplitudes. These are dispersive waves, large periods and faster because there are surface waves. Next, I can go speedily to seismogram. How actually, you see, the station is German, but earthquake in another place, and the magnitude is 6.5. You see how the primary wave, because it is faster, it reaches fast. Then secondary waves, it reaches here, the surface waves, the secondary wave. Then the surface wave starts here actually, log wave or Rayleigh waves. And this is in up-down direction, it is measured. This is in north-south direction, this is in east-west direction. That means in one in vertical direction and both are in horizontal direction. So how actually seismogram works. And we can see a seismograph, a simple diagram, how this is a heavy pendulum, how the ground shakes, and how this is a sheet which is moving in a drum, the paper, and how it is plotting. And in the modern, actually, we have modern seismograph, digital. The modern digital broadband seismograph are capable of recording almost the whole seismological spectrum, 50 Hz to 300 Hz. Their resolution of 24 bits allows for precise recording of small quakes as well as unsaturated registration of largest one. And now we can discuss about the observation seismology, how we can locate the earthquake. To locate the earthquake, we need precise readings of time when P and S wave arrive at a number. So we can see here the drum, the paper, the P wave is faster in velocity, so it reaches fast. Then the S wave reaches, so there is a time gap. There is a time gap between P wave and S wave, and this is the first S wave, this is the first wave, this is the time gap, and we know the velocity of P wave, we know the velocity of secondary wave, and now this is the surface wave. So from this time gap, we can get the distance of the epicenter. Accurate absolute timing with a precision of 0.01 second is essential in seismology. So knowing the difference in arrival times of two waves, this is done using the travel time curves, which shows how long does it for P and S wave to reach the sum epicentral distance. So this is, you can see seismograph station A, B, C. So according to distance, this is the time gap, this is the time gap, this is the time gap, and we can see the distance of earthquake from the center, and this is the time gap in minute. So distance we can find out, and more clearly after knowing the distance of epicenter, then we can locate also epicentral distance from the measurement center seismogram. We can locate the epicenter also because from minimum 3 observation centers are necessary, and we can know the distance to the observation center, and we can have the radius of 3 circles. The meeting point of the circles this is called the epicenter. So after we know the distance of epicenter from at least 3 stations, we may find the epicenter like this by drawing the circle. So this is same graph, just in a larger way, and we can see how this is the P wave, S wave, and for example, S minus P, 24 seconds. The P wave reach fast, secondary wave reach second. The time gap is 24 seconds, and if the time gap is 24 seconds here, then the kilometer is around here 200 kilometer, and we can know the amplitude. Amplitude is here. Amplitude is here 24 mm measured from the seismogram. So if you know the amplitude as well as the distance, and if you join these, then you can get the magnitude in Richter scale. So here the Richter scale, it is 5, for second case it is 4, for third case it is 3. Like that in the Richter scale we can measure. So this is actually the Richter scale. The same diagram before I have just magnified it. You have a ratio of 24 seconds, how distance and how amplitude is measuring. Amplitude, we know the amplitude, we know the distance, so we can have the Richter scale here. And next, based upon the frequency of the and the intensity of the earthquakes, in India we have divided into 4 zones. In the previous code 1993 it was 5 zones. Now zone 1 to merge, so now we have 4 zones according to importance we have divided. Now frequency, just to have a glance, great earthquakes, they actually occur very less. So like 8 and higher in magnitude once in a year, 7 to 7, 9, 18 in a year. If you put very minor earthquake, less than 3 in magnitude, about 1,000 per day. Sometimes it is 8,000 per day for 1, 2. Next, we can also have energy in TNT. If we can compare like a quarry blast, how much TNT, then large lightning bolt, 75 TNT, Hiroshima atom bomb, 27 TNT. So like that, Chilean earthquake, this much of TNT. So for comparison, we can have also with the earthquake how much energy is actually released in the earthquake. And we have another scale also called, that is called Mercalli intensity. It is not based on the magnitude, it is intensity, it is local specific. That means in Dhenkanal, in which area central Odisha, the intensity may be less, and in Bhubaneswar intensity may be more. And as the distance from epicenter increases, then the intensity also decreases. So these are the various classification of the intensity. Next, we can come to engineering seismology, where the earthquakes are only natural disasters that are mostly harmless to the humans. The only danger comes from buildings designed not to withstand the largest possible earthquake in the world. Engineering seismology provides civil engineers the parameters they need in order to construct seismically safe and sound structures. Engineering seismology is a bridge between seismology and earthquake engineering. So a civil engineer requires these parameters, that is maximum expected horizontal ground acceleration PGA, like that expected horizontal ground velocity PGV, horizontal maximum expected horizontal ground distance PGD, response spectra, maximum expected intensity. So engineering seismologists mostly use record of ground acceleration obtained by strong motion accelerogram. In order to estimate parameters, seismology need complete earthquake catalog that extends into the past, information of soil structure properties at the construction site, as well as on the path between epicenter and the site is necessary, records of strong earthquakes and small events of nearby epicenter also necessary, result of geological survey. So engineering seismology, complete and homogeneous earthquake catalog nearby area, epicentral distance, soil condition also should be mapped. So this is an example in Nicosia. And we have generally we estimate in two approach. One is probabilistic approach and other is deterministic approach. So we use generally statistical method in probability approach. Okay, probability of exceeding a predefined level of ground motion. And in deterministic approach, we use the predefined earthquake and calculate effect and parameters on seismic force on the construction site. So like that, after collecting many data, probability hazard assessment of any place like Kushia, one example I have taken from a slide, and we have PGA, percentage of G, PGA, peak ground acceleration percent of G, and in 1000 years with 4 return periods of what is the intensity, where how much PGA will be there, that will be mapped for an area. Amplification, sometimes depending upon the construction site, the soil condition below the soil, like in a coastal area and in central area, it is always different. So amplification of seismic wave may be same, but it will amplify against the soil condition. Amplification of seismic waves in shallow soil deposits may cause extensive damage even far away from the epicenter. It depends on the thickness of soil above the base rock, density and elastic properties of soil, frequency of shaking, and strength of earthquake. So sometimes, though the intensity of earthquake, the magnitude of earthquake may be same at a place, but depends upon the soil condition above the bedrock, the ground as well. So why we should build a sustainable structure? Because here the magnitude is 7.9. For one example, death is this much in Japan. Though the frequency of earthquake is very high, only very few deaths after 1923 in Japan, because all the structure constructed sustainable after this disaster incident. So the challenge is how can we quickly switch over to construction of sustainable structures to mitigate damage to life and property. Therefore, we should to retrofitting of the existing building where which are non-earthquake resistant. So earthquakes, actually in India, we became more sensitized after 2011 Bhuj earthquake. Before that, actually, always we are giving attention to relief works. But after 2001 Bhuj, and generally we gave more attention to mitigation, management, and damage control, all these things, how to earthquake resistance design and its importance. Past earthquakes show that 95% of lives were due to collapse of buildings that were not earthquake resistant. So damage to earthquake damage may be to human settlement, buildings, structures, and infrastructure. Bridges, elevated roads, railways, water towers, pipelines, electrical generating facilities will continue if structure safety certainly not ensured. Aftershocks of an earthquake can cause much stronger damage to already weakened structures. Earthquake also trigger hazards like landslide, fire, and flood. So these are the some buildings, how load-bearing masonry buildings behave in the earthquake. You can see the damages in different buildings, how they're from another, and how pounding, one is pounding here, pounding one building because it is so close to other. And so architectural features, actually for safety, you see in this diagram, building with one of their overall size much larger or much smaller than the other two do not perform well during the earthquake. So, so height and so flat. But these are simple plans, and we can use the regular plans. You see in this last diagram, it was a L plan, and we have just separate the joints to make this a complex L plan to two simple plans. Because by this connection, it will attract torsion during the vibration. And also, these are the buildings having setbacks, and these are unusually tall story here. The story is very tall. Here it is in sloping ground. Here half or floating columns. And here you see the ground story discontinued, the wall. And here you see closely built so that one can pound on other. The sources of damage, there may be two damages already we have seen in the previous slide, that is direct or indirect. So direct effect, one is ground failure, maybe vibration of soil, liquefaction, ground slurching. First, damage due to surface cutting. These damage will completely demolished the house, rupture, tilting, and sometimes minor damage of house. So we can go to a slide. We can see in the slide one how a 7.2 magnitude of earthquake on 10th October in Algiers, how the surface faulting extends, and it is more than 1 meter vertical displacement. Many ships and donkeys were trapped along the surface faulting. So this is actually after the earthquake. You see how the surface faults and how the horizontal as well as vertical separation of the fault. So we can go to the second slide, East-West Railroad. This also in the same ridge, the same fault on the same day, the Algiers same place, and see how the track has been displaced. Next, due to liquefaction, so due to instability of soil by inter significant damage can occur. Mechanical characteristics of soil layers, water table intensities, duration of earthquake influence the soil properties. Whose granular materials present get compacted by ground vibration, causing large and differential settlement, developing excess hydrostatic poor water pressure and leading to liquefaction of the soil. The structure suffers settlement, tilting, and rupture. So we can see effects of liquefaction in
I think there is a problem, is it, sir? Because we are not able to hear you. Yeah. Can you bring yourself closer to the laptop so that we will be able to hear you properly?
Now, sir, audible?
Yeah, now it's audible, sir. Yeah, now it's clear.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Houses that straddle this fissure were damaged and slide 4. So this is slide 3, is the fault. This slide 4, and how the house is damaged and detached due to defection, separated from one another, and this is due to ground shaking also, field inspection. This revealed that seismic performance of a structure is very sensitive to the type of foundation and structural material design and construction detailing. The structural sliding in slide 5, you can see sliding. How actually, because of spreading of the soil, loose granular soil below, how the wall and foundation are separated and spreading separated. In the next slide, because of inadequate anchorage, how a tank, overhead tank, how it has been collapsed because of the earthquake in California. Sorry, this is for the cantilever slab beam column section, and because of inadequate anchorage, how it failed at this junction. So generally, we will avoid cantilevers, we will avoid balconies, or it should be detailed according to code we will discuss in the few other slides. So now you can see the poor detailing of the reinforcement. This is about the water tank. Actually, two water tanks were there. One is here, other is there. Same day it constructed, but first water tank when constructed, they have given more attention to detailing compared to the second and how it collapsed. After inspection, they found it. And the next is because of high slenderness ratio, how the steel water tank, how you see the column size, how it looks slender, and the thin bracings after how it fell down. And the next, you can have also indirect effects like tsunami, landslide, floods, and fires. And earthquake resistant construction, resistant design building do not guarantee safety against collapse or serious damage. Construction and maintenance, including repair, retrofitting, modification, must also be considered in addition to design aspects. Tied to different elements of the substructure, when the structure is built on a site with poor, loose, saturated, and granular soil, where moderate or strong shaking may cause the horizontal displacement due to lateral spreading. So in 12, we can see the damage was due to lateral ground spreading, loose, saturated, granular soil, and inadequate reinforcement of foundation tie beams. Here you can see how it has been detached because of this granular soil. And this is a column, how actually at the bottom of the column, because the in a storied building, the load flows from top to bottom. So bottom portion of the column takes the heavy load, and because of rocking up down, and if because of inadequate lateral ties, if you not provide according to detailing, then how the buckle, the rods, the reinforcements inside have buckle because of the pushes, and how it is coming out by bursting. This is one example how we are progressing it. So to absorb some energy and a way of making earthquake resistant to the existing building. So now we are coming slowly to the codes. So now we will discuss about a list of standards of earthquake engineering. Indian codes actually we have. So we have the standard IS 1893 Part 1. It was actually in now it is revised in 2016 after Bhuj earthquake, the previous version they were using. So this is actually the standard criteria for earthquake resistant design of structures, and it has 5 parts actually. So part 1 presents the provisions that are general in nature and applicable to all structures. For the part 2, which was revised in 2014, it is related to liquid retaining tanks, water tanks. Part 3, that is revised in 2014, that is dedicated for bridges and retaining walls. Part 4, revised in 2015, that is for industrial structures, specially. So part 1 is general, but part 2, 3 specific. Part 5, that is dams and embankments, not revised. Actually, it is not 2014, just I have typed it. It is not revised yet, part 5, dams and embankments. Then the another code, IS 4326. It is only one code, no parts. It is earthquake resistant design and construction of building, general building. This code covers the general principle for earthquake resistant buildings. It deals with the how to select the materials, special features of design and construction for different types of buildings, such as timber construction, masonry construction, using rectangular masonry units, and buildings with prefabricated reinforced concrete storing elements. The third is IS 13827 1993, and it is for improving earthquake resistant of earthen building. So existing, because India we have more rural areas having earthen building also existing up to now also. So how we can improve its earthquake resistance? We can find in this code. The guidelines provided in this code deals with the design construction aspects of improving earthquake resistance of earthen houses without the utilization of stabilization, for instance, cement, admixture, lime, and asphalt. The provisions of the standard are applicable for seismic zones in 3, 4, and 5. No special provisions are considered zone 2. Similarly, next code is 13828, and this is generally applicable for how to improve the earthquake resistance of low strength masonry building. It provides the general principle of design and specification for construction features for improving earthquake resistance of building of low strength masonry. The masonry includes vertical bricks, stone masonry in weak mortars like claymores. The provision of these standards are applicable in all seismic zones. No special provisions are considered necessary for building seismic zones 2. Low strength masonry dealt with based on this standard is termed non-engineered and are not totally free from collapse under seismic shaking intensity modified local intensity 8. Similarly, the next code is 13920. This is also most important code like IS 1893. This is important ductile detailing. So revised in 2016. This standard provides the requirement for designing and detailing or reinforced concrete structures in order to equip them adequate toughness, ductility, withstand serious earthquake shocks without collapse. Actually, previously we are the reinforcement detailing was as per IS 456, but after we became serious after Bhuj earthquake, we are now detailing all the buildings with the IS 1920 after 2001, and the detailing is different from 456. The provisions for reinforced concrete construction given in this standard apply especially monolithic reinforced concrete construction. Precast pre-studded concrete members may be used only if they can provide same level of stability as that of a monolithic reinforced construction during or after an earthquake. This is a last important code, that is IS 13935 2001. Each guideline generally principles the seismic strengthening, selection of material, retrofitting techniques, repair.
There is some connectivity issue, Suraj.
Yes, sir. Would be on and off, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right.
Bikash sir, can you hear us?
I think it has gone out of this thing. I think. You logged it through laptop or through mobile?
Laptop, through laptop.
In fact, there are so many Indian standard codes, no, regarding earthquake.
Yes.
So we'll wait for another 5 to 10 minutes. Should we wait or?
Yeah, he should be back anytime now, I suppose, sir.
Okay. Now
we'll wait for him for a couple of minutes.
Hello.
Yeah, please. Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Please do continue. It's like IS1. Yeah.
No, this is so. Out of all these 6 codes, the most important is, as I told, 1893 and another is 13920.
Yeah.
So just briefly, we'll go something. So these are the 5 zones. So town falling in a boundary of the zones, 2 zones shall be considered the high zone. And now we have only 4 zones, zone 1 and 2 merged in the latest code.
Sir, in this, in the earlier map.
Sir?
In the earlier map, if you can explain about the zones, no? Like which all states, like say, for example, this yellow is what?
Sir, the yellow is actually the blue is, that is zone 2.
Okay. Yeah,
actually, zone I and zone 2, they have merged in the latest code.
Okay. So that is zone 2. Which is the most severe zone actually?
5, sir. Zone 5 is severe.
Zone 5. Yeah. That is only very less, no? Zone 5?
Zone 5, no. Zone 5 higher magnitude. You can see in the Himalayan
Eastern
area.
part. Yes, Himalayan
area. And the boundary between Indian plate and the Eurasian plate, that is Himalayan area. And where there will be more frequent earthquakes of higher magnitude. Now in Delhi, Haryana also, you can see in this area. So, zone 5.
What about Odisha, West Bengal?
Sir?
Odisha is blue.
Odisha is coming in zone 3, sir. Zone 3.
Zone 3. Okay.
Zone 3. to zone 3, but Bhubaneswar, because it is an important town, capital, we are taking design zone 3, and like my place where I am taking as zone 2. And
All
zone
right.
1 is very less earthquake. Zone 5 it means higher magnitude. Frequency
Okay.
may be more also.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next, actually, what is the basic approach of seismic design philosophy? One is to ensure that structures possess at least minimum strength to withstand the minor earthquake without any damage. So one should design the building such that, because one cannot design for earthquake proof, because earthquake may not occur in 100 years or sometimes may also occur. So we have a philosophy. So for less magnitude earthquake, like minor earthquakes, without damage, building can withstand. Two, it can resist moderate without significant structural damage. So some non-structural damage may occur, like door, window, your fans, something may fall, but beams, columns, without significant structural damage. If there will damage, it can be repairable. In its second philosophy, it can be repairable because it is in a moderate earthquake. And the third is the most important. Structure can withstand a major earthquake like magnitude 8, 9, 9.5 higher major earthquake design, but without collapse. So beam may damage, the column may damage, slab may damage, but it will give some time the occupants can run away. So it without any collapse. Building may bend also, but no collapse. The occupants can escape it. So this is actually the design philosophy, so that we can gain the strength as well as economics. And so the note actual forces are actually during earthquake are much greater. Comparing to our philosophy in the previous slide we have discussed of the design forces. Then we are referring or depending on the ductility arising from the inelastic material behavior of, because of the steel, it is more ductile, and after the rupture also it can elongate and it can more strain it can resist with same strength. So we are actually depending on that. So the important is coming ductility over that. So what is the design spectrum? It is in 6.4 of the same code section. Uh, for that, we should have the earthquake load. Actually, the ground is shaking horizontally. So what is actually the total horizontal earthquake force on a building? So if we know the weight of the building, we can multiply it with a horizontal seismic coefficient that is given in the code, and that coefficient is AH, which depends upon the Z, that is zone. The place is in which zone, as we have seen in the previous map, zone 2, 3, 4, or 5, and also I, that is called the importance factor. SA, actually it is a part of accelerated gravity. What is actually the ground shaking acceleration, and R reduction factor depends on the damping. So provided that for any structure, the time period is less than 0.1 second, the value of H will not be taken less than Z by 2, whatever be the value of I by R. So in any case, AH should not be taken less than Z by 2. Where Z is the zone factor given in table 2, will go there, is for the maximum considered earthquake and service type of structure. And I is the importance factor depending upon the functional use of the structures, like telephone building, hospital, police station, industry, firefighting, which should be ready during the earthquake. We should have more important factor like school, institute than a residential building. So this is called important factor given in table 6 that we will show. Then a response and reduction factor. Actually, depending on the structure, the seismic damage performance of a structure, like a masonry building, will be more, it will be prone to more damage compared to a RCC building and compared to a special detailing building. So response and reduction factor, what is the response we can reduce also? A scope is given in the code, that is given in table 7. And a SA by G, this is the average response acceleration coefficient for rock soil sites. As in the previous slide, we have seen the magnitude of earthquake may be same, but the acceleration, ground acceleration will be amplified because of the bedrock soil properties also. So now SA by G, it average response acceleration coefficient for rock or soil sites as given in figure 2 based on appropriate natural periods and damping of the structures. These curves represent the field ground motion. So now you see the table 2 zone. So we have 4 zones. Zone 1, 2 merged already in the recent code. So seismic intensity in these zones, zone factor we can take in that code to calculate that coefficient AH. Here we can take zone factor here depending upon the structure is in which zone. Zone 2, 3, 2. So very severe 0.36, low 0.1 like that given in the code table 2. And this is actually for rock, medium and subsoil. This is the timetable. Here it is the timetable, and this is the SA by G. SA by G, as we have discussed earlier in the previous slide. So according to the soil, different rock, medium soil, very soft soil like coastal area, and these are the coefficient, and this is the time period of the structure. Important factor. So you see important factor, important service, important factor, it is increasing actually the in that age, calculating the age. It is 1.5 for buildings such as hospital, school, monumental structure, emergency building, telephone exchange, television station, radio station, railway station, fire station. So large community halls like cinema, assembly, subway station, power station, it is 1.5. And like other buildings, it is 1. So depends upon the building, importance of building. It is given code briefly. I am going to next slide. This is response reduction factor R. You see here ordinary, number 1 is ordinary RC moment resisting frame, OMRF, special RC momentic resisting frame. You see the value is for ordinary RC moment resisting it is different, and for special moment resisting it is also different, because ordinary RC moment resisting frames means which was already designed by IRS 456 existing buildings, but special RC moment resisting frame means where 13920 ductile detailing has been taken into account, earthquake code that has been taken, so it has more resistance. So the reduction factor will be like that given in the code. So these are for different structures, the R factor. Now directly I'm going to load combinations. So we have we know dead load, imposed load, and earthquake load. So how we'll take? So for plastic design of tree structure, we can take 1.7 dead load plus imposed load, and 1.7 dead load plus load, 1.3 dead load plus if it is 1.3, then dead load, imposed load, and earthquake load for plastic design. And for RCC, it is given 1.5 dead load, imposed load, 1.2 dead load, imposed load, earthquake load, 1.5 dead load. These are the combinations. We can take the load, and the structure is subjected to given in the code. And we can take combinations also, like earthquake may come in any direction. So, but the structure is in a particular XY direction. So we can convert the acceleration or the effect of earthquake along X direction, Y direction, and vertically Z direction. We can take these combinations also, like given here in Y direction, X direction, Z direction, with different coefficients. We can take also. Fundamental natural period. So to calculate that AH previously in that slide, we can calculate the natural period of a structure that is given in the code 0.075 h to the power 75, 0.085 h to the 0.75, like from RC building, steel frame building, where h is the height of building. Next, we can calculate also approximately natural period of all other buildings by this formula 0.09 by root over D. D is the base dimension of the building at the plinth level. And how you will distribute the design force? Actually, A is the horizontal coefficient, and you are getting the total horizontal force VB. But the height, there are many stories along the height of the building. So each story is subject to same horizontal force. The bottom story is subject to let more horizontal force. So total horizontal force, it will struck at the ground, shaking at the bottom, but how it is divided throughout the height, that is given by this formula WH, then summation of J1 to N means number of story, WH square, like that coefficient. So H is the height of floor measured from. So when the height increases, accordingly you can distribute the load and get the loading diagram along the height of the building. Actually, these are the horizontal load, but along the height of building it is not constant, and we can see how it is subjected along the height. So actually, the previous discussion was about the static analysis or based on coefficient, that is empirical method, but not dynamic analysis. Dynamic analysis actually it is a real analysis, not empirical formula. So we can do it. Where nowadays we are doing it, but for regular buildings, it can be greater than 40 meter for different zones, zone IV and B, and greater than 90 meter for zone 2 and second, having less magnitude of earthquake. But for a irregular building, if your building is irregular, which will attract torsion, in addition to the bending and shear, irregular buildings, it is already defined in 7.1. All the framed buildings higher than 12 meter instead of 40 meter in zone IV and B, and those greater than 40 meter, not 90 meter, in zone 2 and 3. For irregular buildings, we have to perform dynamic analysis. And then we have also some limitation of deformation, that is story drift. It is given in the code 0.004 times the story height. It depends on the height of the building. Next is we can have story drift also. And next, the next code, important code, as a code out of 6 codes, 13920, mainly detailing, and we can go through quickly. So here, the longitudinal reinforcement. The top as well as bottom reinforcement shall consist of at least 2 bars throughout the member. So from the design start pro, it may give 100%, small reinforcement, but we have to take minimum 2 at the top face, bottom face, because sometimes there may be reversal up down when the building is up down, maybe bending will be on the top, bottom, like that. So positive steel at a joint face must be at least equal to half the negative steel. The steel provided at each of the top of the bottom face of member at any section along its length shall be at least equal to 1/4 of the maximum negative moment steel provided at the face of the either junction of a beam passing from one column to. And I have taken the diagram from the code. You see development length. Actually, this is a beam joining to a column at the end. It is not not passing over the column. The beam is ending here. Here we have to provide the external joint. Both the top and the bottom bars of the beam shall be provided with anchorage length. And you see the anchorage length is provided for both the bars, not only for top bars. In IS 456, it is provided for top bars and not for bottom bars. So beyond the inner face of the column equal to development length cross 10 times the bar diameter minus for 2 columns for 90. Next, you can see how 13920, how it is serious. This is a beam for the junction of the column face 2D, 2 times the effective distance of 2 times the effective depth. The hoop spacing, the stirrups we are providing with close spacing, that is D by 4. Effective depth of beam is D by 4 or 8 dB. But in between, in the central place of the beam, central span, not to the junction, after 2D, hoop spacing is maybe greater than, this is D by 2. So we keep D by 4 and D by 2. This was not followed in IS 456. So this we will follow. And we can see how we are serious in giving lateral ties in columns and stirrups in beams, how actually 135-degree the stirrups ties we are providing. Previously, we are providing 90-degree these ties, lateral ties in a column or stirrups in a beam. And we can see here also the reinforcement detail in a column, and we can see along the junction, it is very close, and away from the junction, it is sparser. The formula is here up to height by 4, and what is the formula? It is given in the code how much spacing you should provide in a for detailing of the column. Similarly, we can go to foundation. In the foundation also, this is 300 mm. For this 300 mm, how we are providing special confining reinforcement. So today we have discussed all speedily, briefly, and finally I can say a proper designed, detailed, constructed reinforced concrete structure can withstand severe earthquakes because of its ductile behavior. And many thanks very much. And please stop. And because the time was given, I should be closing within 12. And when I started, actually net was not working. This is central in area, so I faced difficulties. And many thanks to the organizers, Ramco and Eli sir, Jiban, Suhas, and all the team and participants for the patience hearing. Thank you very much. Now one can ask me any questions or please.
Thank you, Dr. Bikash Chandra Panda. That was a very good presentation. In fact, that was the need of the hour, because many times what happens is that we are not taking this provisions very seriously, and I think the codal provisions as far as earthquake detailing and design is concerned should be incorporated. That is one message that has been given, because it's always better to take care of the lateral loads that is coming, and you have also emphasized on the need of ductile failure, more than the brittle this thing. So I think most of the structure should be designed in that manner, so that it would be much safer. So as far as the spacing of stirrups is concerned, and the ties, in what angle it has to be done, I think there are a number of IS codes also which has been revised recently, and as rightly pointed out by you, I think designers and construction professionals must take guidelines from those codes and incorporate that in the design this thing. So that was a good presentation. Thank you so much for having taken time off your schedule and being here. Tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. We have a webinar on low-cost housing construction using quick-built panels for cyclone and earthquake. Again, this is related to mitigation of natural disasters and what we need to do, because it's not the disaster that kills people, it's the buildings. So building has to be designed in such a manner. So we have Dr. Paliboina Poluraju from Vijayawada Center, and he's a ICA chairperson for Vijayawada Center. He's a senior assistant professor from the Department of Civil Engineering. We are Siddhartha Engineering College, AP. So tomorrow we meet at 3:30 p.m. For the next webinar. Thank you so much for all of you for having logged in and patiently listened to the speaker. Thank you. Stay safe. All the best. So we sign off from today's webinar. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for giving me.